Well, you are very welcome to be out in the cottage, and as promised, I'm going to take you down into the lower woodland. Well, the middle and the lower woodland, but also down to the fairy wood and the spring well. Now, this is the water that's flowing from the spring well here. It's just amazing, even just to imagine that about 17 years ago, I got some copper rods and I divined for water because the land was so wet that I knew there must be an aquifer somewhere. And I dug out this spring well, and from that day to this it's flowed. So this is the morning now, and the clouds are quite heavy. It's been quite a dark morning, but nevertheless quite an enchanting day, because at this time of the year the weather changes so fast. You can have sunshine and rain and wind, and there's something so delightful just about walking through woodland. I can't sing the praises of a woodland garden high enough and big enough and loud enough, because by planting trees you're helping to create another dimension. So of course here, look at this, shaggy inkcap mushrooms. Not quite ready to pick because there's only one or two coming up. But another few days, maybe another week, and there'll be a mushroom on wholemeal toast breakfast happening here. I've got to make a little bit of an apology. People who have been leaving comments, reply comments to other comments, I've been trying to ensure that they go up onto the comment section, and I've discovered that by clicking approve, the comment disappears. So I've just stopped doing that, and hopefully the comments will come through. So I do apologise for anyone who has gone looking for a reply to a comment and not been able to find it. Anyway, my fault. I just got very confused with the way that YouTube has formatted this. Anyway, never mind. I've learned. There's another learning curve I've just climbed up. So this is the north bank of the cottage, and very shortly I'm going to take you down into the fairy wood. So this is just the beginning of the video, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an update now on the calendar. The calendar is with the printer. I've got a price for it. I'm just waiting for my printer to email me the front cover. Once I've got the front cover, I'm going to put it up on the website, and I promise I will let everybody know that there is a pre-order available. I'm not going to get as many calendars printed this year because they do come in quite expensive, but probably about 500, so it's going to be first come, first served. There's the crows up in the ash tree behind the cottage. They hang around every morning waiting for me to put food out for them. You hardly ever see a lone crow because they stay in little family groups. This is obviously a family group. And just out the front of the cottage, look, I find these beautiful mushrooms, these beautiful fungi. That's one of the great pleasures about making little rustic beds that you surround with wood or logs or stone. You'll encourage quite a diversity of little plants and mushrooms, fungi, creatures. Much more interesting than just a formal garden. And this is the gable end of the cottage. I'm sort of showing off my trellis here because I've been so pleased with the look that I've got now using the old trellis on the cottage. It's a little side path round to the front door. See, I've got pumpkins on the window in the kitchen. So as the weather is quite unpredictable today, I made sure that I put on my rain jacket. But as I came round the side of the little she shed, I just thought you'd be interested in having a look at this. Can you see her? Can you see her? Can you see her now? Yes, it's one of my goddesses. The goddess to me represents Mother Earth. Seems to embody everything that is Mother Earth. See the wonderful clematis on the side of the she shed. People ask me what's in this shed. Well, nothing much. Things to take to the dump and a bicycle and a few other bits and pieces. These are 2 owls because the owl again represents the goddess. If you ever see a figure of Athena, Athena has an owl on her shoulder. This is where I put everything that I cut back. I sort of squash it into the hedgerow, all in various places, all the way down the drive. And that breaks down and provides food for all the plants and the trees. It's very beneficial. Here's another representation of Mother Earth. I think the real McCoy was actually created by famous sculptor Henry Moore, I think. This part of the garden has got a lot of metal in it, like horseshoes and brass and copper, little bits and pieces. I love to almost secrete little pieces around the place, So when you're walking round, you suddenly discover something. You find something. And if you think about it and if you look at where it's placed, it usually means something as well. So, let's go off down to the lower woodland and I'll show you some delights. Just walking down here, we're going to cut in on the first little entrance, and that takes us in through it's a very secret little entrance into the fairy wood. I'll show you. We'll just walk up here and you'll see the steps leading up to the cottage, and then if we just turn left right onto the bank, we'll end up down in the fairy wood. Now there's another little entrance, but that takes you somewhere else. We'll just cut in here. Here we go. Now this has got a beautiful microclimate down here because it's in a dell, which is like a little sort of a burrowed out place below a bank. It stays quite warm. It's very sheltered. This is one of the little ditches that I've dug out in the fairy wood just to make sure that the water is released. Now, it's not related to the aquifer or the spring well. I think it's just there's a lot of water comes down the hill and collects down here. There's a few big stones, which I'll just show you now. And the water seems to collect there, and then I dug out this little channel just to channel it away so the land doesn't get soggy. We're just walking through the fairy wood, and you can see there's almost like a prehistoric look to this place. It's very old, it's very ancient, lots of lichens, lots of moss. The trees seem to be holding on to secrets down here. There's a very old, very ancient fairy thorn which is rebirthed I don't know how many times. It's possibly about 150 years old, maybe older. And look at this for an ivy-covered tree trunk. It's hanging down in swathes. We're just going on down now towards the well, the spring well. Just go left here. Now you can see the goddess Danu, well, a representation of the goddess Danu. In the Irish Celtic tradition, Danu was the mother of all the gods. And there she presides by the well which is dedicated to her. So that's Danu's well. That's the one that I dug out. And you can see lots of ivy and ferns. It's very special. There's a beautiful energy abides here. It's almost timeless. And that water flows out to the great oceans of the world. And I like to think it brings messages with it, that it's imbued with energy, positive energy. This was the water that you've seen and heard at the very beginning of the video as it flows out down along the driveway and under the driveway by the gate and away off into the River Firish and away off into the great River Shannon, and then released into the Atlantic Ocean. These are some of the big Scots pines. Hard to believe that they're, 15, 16 years old. I love the great seed heads that you find all the way through the winter and spring down in the woodland. And now we're going to cross the stream again. And once you cross the stream, you come away from the middle wood and into the very lower wood. But most of this has been filmed in the middle wood. There's a little bridge across the stream. And in a minute you'll see the wonderful flow on this. It's actually carved its own way through the woods, away on its magical path towards the oceans on this beautiful earth. Sometimes it's hard just to position the camera, and here I'm waiting for it to fall over. Oh, I've had to fix it again. I try to get the best shots, but to be honest, it doesn't matter where I point the camera. I think it's completely beautiful. It's very hard for me to get what I would say was a bad shot of any of the woodland. And to think 18 years ago, this was just rushy fields. And now look at the life that's there. And all these leaves dropped, and they feed the earth and create topsoil. Trees are so important. They are just alive, the embodiment of Earth, the sentient guardians of Mother Earth. Here's a holly tree that I planted in the spring. I had that growing in a big tub. And there's wood drying by the pond. Well, the old pond, because the stream goes through there now. But it'll take a few more years for the stream to make it its own. So just crossing over the stream now. These are the seed heads of the meadow sweet. Really beautiful. They just dry naturally. I love it when the trees begin to fall slightly, create their own shapes. That's why I don't stake any trees. I don't want them to be tied to a stake. I want them to grow how they want to grow. And that way you get this beautiful effect, because of course the only real artist and architect is Mother Earth herself. And let things be and enjoy what they become. I remember as a child, one of my favourite poems was The Way Through the Woods by Robert Frost. I think that's why I love creating paths. You get to a point and you say, which path will I take? Which path will bring me home? Or which path will bring me into something new, like a new dimension? A magical path. And now we're just walking back up towards the cottage. There's the driveway over there. Blessings to you all, and thank you so much for sharing this with me. Built in a cottage when I first saw it, and this is the view from the cottage, from the road up to the cottage, and this is the view from the cottage down towards the road.